because it's not going to hurt anything for it to be wet. So you can kind of see how that goes.
I gotta do it again.
All right.
So does a little water go does a little powder go a long way?
No, you'll want to use a kind of what's going to feel like too much powder. This is going to look much lighter once it's fired. So I might even go in and put a little bit more on if I was going to keep this like this.
Okay.
Okay, any questions about that? You play around a little bit with this too.
Any chance you could do this little edge there so I can catch that? Just take the water and just get it wet, and it's kind of...
Yeah, you just kind of can drag your paintbrush across the surface.
Well, then the moisture will kind of pull it into that design.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, I think that's what's happening. That's how I would describe it. And then if you have like kind of a little bit of a bumpy quality, you can go in and just really gently tap it. Smooth it out too. Alright, so that is one way to get your glass where you want it to go. I think what will be a little more friendly for most of you is having the powder be wet before you apply it. So what I'm going to do now is I have a little bit of Elmer's white glue at the bottom of this cup, and I'm going to add water to it until it's about the consistency of skim milk. Now, this is not an exact science. If you've got a little too much or a little not enough, that's alright. It's not going to hurt anything. But what you're aiming for is that sort of still white. The color will be white, but it'll move like water, right? Everybody kind of knows what skim milk looks like. Aim for that. So this is your glue and water mixture. Where's my just water? I'll need that too. And what I would do is I would mix up a fair amount of this, so something like that. You know, maybe a third of the cup. And then you're going to use this for all of your colors. Now you're going to start with just enough glass, right? So what is that? Start with less glass than what you need. Because once we add the glue and water mixture to this colorant is only good until it dries out. So we can't rehydrate this specific part. So if you are mixing two colors together to get a new hue, mix more than you think you need. But if it's just a color out of the jar, you can keep adding a little bit of powder as you go along. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah? Good with that? Okay. This is way more than I'm going to need, so I'm thinking like that. Okay, so got a little glass powder in there. I'm going to add just a little bit of this. If you add too much, that's okay. If you just let it sit for a second or two, the powder will settle to the bottom. You can pour off that extra glue and water mixture. And I'm going to mix it up. I'm actually going to add a little bit more. Where'd my light green go? Close enough. And I'll mix this up. I'm actually going to take my paintbrush out of the cup with it sort of loaded up, and I'm going to apply this directly to my mold. You can see this is very similar, right?
Just get a little bit more control.
Yeah, it's going to allow you to really specifically color where you want. And you know, you may find that if it is too watery, you're not going to get the tone that you're looking for. And in that case, you'll pour off a little bit of the glue mixture. If it's kind of clumping and it looks really dry, like sand, you don't have enough glue. Or maybe the surface of your plaster needs to be a little bit damper. And if that's the case, you can just take a wet paintbrush and kind of put a little extra water on there. Well, I'm still going to do the same thing. I'm going to take that damp paintbrush and I'm going to run it along sort of that area that I want to clean up. And again, you're going to see that the frit is going to stick to your paintbrush over the surface of your plaster. Now, my advice to you is if you want a highly saturated pattern, to use more powder than you think you need. And choose really bright colors.
Is this just regular water?
This is just regular water. I'm just using the regular water to, I'm cleaning my paintbrush. I'll brush it a few times on the outside edge just to sort of, so that it's not quite as damp. And then I'm going to use it to kind of clean up that edge.
If you find that you don't have the like vibrancy or saturation that you want,
yes,
can something like that be can you go over your actual piece and then do a very low fire just to
So once you fired it once, can you refire it with more color,
more
on it?
color on it?
I have never tried that,
Oh.
so I don't know for sure. I feel like to get it hot enough to get the powder to gloss like it is, you would have to make it hot enough that you would lose your relief.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
And what if you don't mind having it
Completely flat?
glossy?
No, for it to be glossy and not chalky. So for it to
Oh.
appear like the way it looks now,
Right.
you would have to fire your glass hot enough that the glass would
Right.
slump and you would lose your relief pattern.
And if you wanted to do it lower and have it sort of chalky.
You could try it.
Yeah.
I don't know what would happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure that you would be able to get it hot enough for the powder to stick
No, I think
and
like,
not lose the patterning.
like 1230 or 1190 or something like that.
Yeah, it might. I mean, I'm
I
not
guess
saying
just
no.
have to
I'm saying
try
I
it.
don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, it's possible. So, those are the two ways you can kind of see if by the time I went all the way around doing these little bits green, this would probably be pretty dry, and I could paint my next color on top of it. Or I could go in and make all of this, one color, all of my deepest inset stuff, and then I could sip powder over the whole surface if I wanted the background to be a different color. Now, some words of caution. Do not expect to like the way fine lines look in light colors and with a dark background. So, do not make your fine lines white and your background black. You could try it. Maybe you'll love it. What tends to happen is those fine lines disappear. So kind of think darkest colors furthest forward, and then lighter towards the back.
Darkest furthest forward,
Yes.
lightest towards the back.
Yes.
Towards.
That is going to give you it is the easiest way to know that your results will be nice. It was not to say that you could never make that work. It's just a little trickier. And it's certainly not a catch-all either. So if you have something that you're really planning on, like it must be dark in the back and light in the front, then we can talk about what your options are.
But that's a good place to start.
It's a good place to start. So go ahead.
So if this is dried and you're coming back in with your next color,
Mm-hmm.
how do you keep it from bleeding into
So
these,
this will
or if
actually
it-
kind of stay where it's at.
Okay,
Yeah, so if I add a little bit, let's make this just a different color.
but you can still can I use the water to pull? The green will stay in the
Yes.
new color. The water will pull it back to where it's
Surprisingly, yes.
okay.
Yeah. So we'll do a little bit of a darker color on top there. And hopefully this is a high enough contrast you can kind of see the difference. Alright, so I'll put this right over there.
That's the powder and the blue, right?
Yes. Yeah. And that's going to sit right on top of that, and you would see the two different colors, even though right now it just all looks kind of the same. And you could do the same thing where you go in, start to pull away whatever it is you want to remove. This one, probably make this a little flatter. So it really will want to stay where you put the glass color, and that's important for the next step. I'm going to show you something that you're not going to believe is true.
So you just went over the top with it, leave it.
I did.
So because
yeah.
the base color will show is what will show. It doesn't matter then.
So now this
I
has
see.
two colors. So even
Okay.
though this looks all the same color, it's
Yeah.
just because that, well, A, it's not a very good sample, right? It's almost the same color, but B, that second layer is just sitting on top of the first layer. So the furthest forward is down first. Good so far? Okay, so I'm going to show you the next and final step. So you get this all colored in first.
Oh wait, sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Darkest forward, lightest towards the back. That's from your perspective.
Darkest, deepest. Is darkest, deepest.
Darkest, deepest, yeah.
And this is going to be the top. The bottom, the deepest part is the top. And then
The
you flip it over.
the deepest part is going to be the furthest forward
Yeah.
in the final design.
So it's what you put in that's deeper.
This is the background.
Yeah.
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 Yep. Okay, so next step. So what we have now on here, even if I fully colored this in, is not enough glass for us to have a substantial final product. It's going to be really thin and very fragile. So what we're going to do is we're going to bulk it up. And to bulk it up, we're going to use different material. We're going to use frit. Alright, so we've got those containers over there that say frit on them. It's all clear frit. This is a different color, and I will address that in a minute. And what you're going to do is you'll probably use a fair amount of this per layer, but because it's all the same color, you can just kind of mix as you go. I wouldn't fill these any more than halfway full, and that's just because for ease of mixing. Now, for the first layer, we either just applied the powder to the surface and the wet plaster is holding the powder on, or we've used a little bit of glue to give it a little bit more tack. So the binder for us is either just nothing, just water, or water and glue. For the second layer, our binder is going to be gum arabic.
What frit is that? Is that fine?
It is fine frit.
Does the water, no water, or glue make more bubbles or anything like that?
No, I have not found that to be true. We are using gum arabic for the second layer because it's much more material, and because the gum arabic you can rehydrate. So this is frit from the last class 4 months ago. I'm not going to add any more. Well, maybe I'll add a little bit of gum arabic to this, but it makes it reusable indefinitely. Whereas with the glue, you get a little more tack, right? So it's going to hold it a little better where we really need it on the surface for the patterning, but it's not reusable. So it's kind of a trade-off. You could do gum arabic for this and it would probably work fine. It's just not something I've ever tried. So what you'll do is you'll put the dry fine frit into one of these containers. We've got lots, and you're gonna do maybe like 5 seconds of one to 1 second of another. It's not really rocket science here, so it doesn't need to be exactly the same. Oh yeah, thank you. Thank you. Let me get this to go. No? Alright. Anyway, you would put a little bit of that into once it's cleared out. Close the lid up. Give it a shake. Mix it all up.
How much?
Enough. Not too much.
Well, because we didn't get to see. A squirt?
Yeah,
Drop?
a squirt.
Okay.
And so what you're looking for is this is going to look a specific way once you take the lid off. And it's going to look kind of like a snow cone. And you will want to test it with a spoon. And make sure that it's damp enough. So if it's too wet, it's going to look really kind of glossy. And either way is not a mistake that is, you know, you can fix it if it's too wet or too dry. If it's too wet, it's going to look kind of glossy. It's all going to look really kind of flat. This has got a lot of texture to it. If it's too dry, what will happen is you'll go to push it against the side of the container and you will not be able to compress it. It'll kind of fall and crumble apart. So that's kind of what you're aiming for. And again, this is something that you just have to do it a few times and make it a little too wet or a little too dry.
So it's not cookie dough clumpy.
No, snow
Kind of like
cone.
compacted sugar or something.
Right, right. It's not Mars of
Yeah, no, definitely not. Alright, so I've got this, my frit looks pretty good. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to apply it to the surface of my plaster. And to do that, what you will do is take a spoonful of it and put it right on top of your glass. And then you are going to start to compress it. So to compress it, we've got a bunch of different types of tools. You can use the back of your spoon. We've got these guys, so we've got these guys. I'm going to use the back of my spoon.
Are these sculpture tools?
These were made here in house.
Camping
Yeah,
it
they're for
now, yeah.
camping.
Oh, they're custom.
Very nice.